I'm thoroughly thankful for the style of this manga in general, but I really like the fact that every time that we have a actual boss fight, it's not just some demon who is, for the sake of gonna have some conversation and then be foddered by the following page or two once they're done talking. But Tonjinji has done really well again as putting up numbers as just being a dangerous villain, obviously beating pretty much all of Tsurugi's squad and just leaving him to be the only one to fight him. But being able to push Tsurugi all the way to use his trump card, it just again shows where he stands in terms of strength, but also to where the demons are, because I think all of them have done really well at being really cool and capable boss villains. And again, it's like this is the first big arc of the series, and I'd say like big arc for for what it was. The first one that really it has a large sense of scale. Like you have multiple of these groups joining up. It's not one of those ones where it's dire situations. Everybody is in a rough corner, because a lot of these fights have been introductions for the cross paladins, and we know that for them most of the demons were not going to be much of a fight, as we saw with Kyoka and Gorgon. She was the fourth ranked demon lord, and Kyoka relatively ran over her. Like, she only went up to what, 8 gongs, and just was only doing essentially her opening attacks, and ran over Gorgon. So when you really look at that, it's like, okay, so that fight was just to give a little bit of stuff in her backstory. Tsurugi's is way more so of a pushed and to set his limits, has to just go all out in order to win the fight. It's not one where he has to really like invent a new move or figure out how to one of those, oh, I have to get way stronger in the middle of a fight, and figure out a new way to use an attack, invent a new style, surpass all of my limits to become stronger than where I was when I started, kind of thing. It doesn't seem to be that. It was more so giving us information on his backstory and giving us a little bit, because we know now about his brother, which is a really interesting addition that I actually didn't expect that at all. I figured that if he was going to have any form of backstory with like a family member in the organization with like high rank, again, I also didn't think it was going to be another cross paladin, but I figured it was going to be one of his parents, because he seems to be like, for his personality, I assumed he was going to be one of those guys where it's like his parents were killed by a demon, so he's just super cold about it and wants to exercise him. But now I wonder exactly what the extent is, because if his brother is really the it's going to depend on how much older his brother is too, because at the point of like where his brother was really making his name for himself, would be like, I wonder how old Tsurugi was at this time. Was life really as dangerous if his brother was able to do a lot of pretty much oversight as to what was going on? uh, Information, again, we gotta wait for it. His brother seems to be extremely hype. I wonder where he stands in terms of the overall Exorcist, because that again tells us too that Sakaki passed his spot to Tsurugi. There should be 5, as far as cross paladins are 5, and I think the fact that he is set as an ex cross paladin, and we were told that there are 5 that held the title, that there aren't counting somebody who previously held it, because as well as we know that the headmaster was a cross paladin, and I feel like it's very obvious that Kiyoshi's grandma was a cross paladin at one point. There's no way that she wasn't. There's no way that she isn't clearly like one of the strongest people even now. Like, she has to have something very important about her, because every single time we see her, we don't even see her face. It's just her back, and she's hyped up. And like, I don't know. I've seen enough series to know when exactly to be. Like, just to assume that an old character is going to be an extremely powerful character, and their only weakness is the fact that they're old at this point. But as it were, Tonjinchi, I think Tonjinchi has like a really good just general setup, as he's been beating Exorcist just over time. But I wish we knew how many cross paladins he's fought, and we knew how many of them he fought over time. Like, say, he's fought like one generally every 30 to 40 years or something like that. Because That's the only thing to me that I think was missing for his whole setup, because it's not like he is, at least from what we've been shown, is a like mega lore character, because we're only, you know, 40 something chapters, like what is this, 46 chapters into the series. We don't know the deep extensive lore. I was hoping we would maybe find out just like he was old enough to be at the previous Black Parade, and maybe something like that. Maybe he fought a cross paladin at that point. I don't know. Either way, it was really good just in general build up for him, and seeing Tsurugi in his chapter never really getting into that he's like edges from defeat. He was just getting pushed and clearly getting being on the back foot type scenario, at least from what I would realistically interpret from that fight. But as it were, clearly once we get into a little bit of backstory, that we learn again his brother is I won't really want to know what his brother's abilities are. I think the structure of the verse has such a cool style of powers that, like, again, like, he is he going to one thing I want to bring up is I wish I screenshotted the post on Twitter that brought up how in the Japanese translation it was referred to with the two of them being with Sakaki and his brother, is it Utsugi or Sugi? Let me pull it up just to see. Yeah, Utsugi. That he is referred to like as the Exorcist spear, like he's the church's spear, and Sakaki was referred to as the sword. So it's like if you have that, it's like is he gonna have some form of, again, spear based weaponry? Is that just maybe like a way that the wording could be translated? Is he going to have a demon contracted to him? Because that's something that could easily be on a character. It's something that is not done in the same way as a crest, so you can have both, but it's not like guaranteed you would have both. It's just like there's so many variety of abilities for characters when they get up to the higher levels, because it seems to be you have you either pick a power or a weapon or some type of gear. Eventually you get to a crest, you get to two crests, and then you know either the same one or two of each. And then there's like specific special weapons and power contracts and avenues that you can get, but only if you reach those top areas. So I just think that the whole structure is really neat, because like whenever a cool new character shows up that is high up, you generally would, I think, would be able to tell like how many powers and like what kind of things like the reach a character would have, unless they are special in some way. But it's like anytime you have a higher up character that either introduces a new thing or is going to be structured around pre-existing things, it's like, okay, well, what is their combination of things going to be? Like, say at some point we're gonna get to shooting Toji, and I assumed he was just gonna have a crest. He's just gonna have like a smoke crest. But one thing about him that was never indirectly talked about, it wasn't noted, is that he has similar eyes to how the demons have them, as we've seen with like Azudaroth has like it's 5 points, but with Shuten he has 3 points of like those lines that go around the eyes. And when he was charging up his power, it was black, similar to the demons. So he must be derived in power wise from the demons in their verse in some way, shape, or form. So if you have stuff like that, and you have again, it's like, okay, well, then on top of that, he can have a crest. Is he gonna have some special artifact or weapon too? How many of these special artifacts are there? Obviously this is a one-of-a-kind thing that that Tsurugi had in this chapter, but again, who knows? I was actually expecting him to do something with like maybe like fusing his two crests, because it's like maybe if you have two of the same crest, you do some cool combo move, and it's not just stacking them on top of each other. It's like you're just merging them to evolve, or if he used two different types of abilities from the same thing, maybe he merges to do a fusion. I don't know. I would really like to see if there is like a distinctive difference between having two of the same crest versus having two different crests. Like maybe there's an advantage specifically to having two crests of the exact same thing. Again, something we'll have to wait and find out later. But I really like that his ult ability is that he pulls out this artifact from King Arthur, and it's like just this cool holy lightsaber essentially. It looks really badass. I really loved the structure of it. The only thing in this fight that I really didn't like and that bothered me is the fact that we didn't get any power explanation information, and I think there's a reason for that. And what I mean by that is, it's like when you had Kurose and he's like talking about absolute zero in the demon world is 800 negative 868 degrees. And as far as I know, in terms of like fiction, that's just it's literally just fiction cold. It's like it's extreme fiction cold. There's like just numbers at that point, because everything I think after that, it's literally just getting into made up number. Well, I know absolute zero is already a theoretical thing, right? As far as I know, but when it comes to just specific crazy numbers like negative 868 degrees, it's literally just throwing big numbers on there for the sake of fantasy. But I like when information is given to us. I like when characters explain, like, whether it's out loud or in their head, when they're, something has a specific effect, we need to know it. I don't like the idea. It's like if you have something, like if rattling bones, for example, has some form of ability that it does when it cuts you. Maybe it does something where it literally makes your bones shake, and it's like a stun effect because it's so weird going throughout your whole body and messes with your vision and sense of balance or something like that. I don't know. Maybe we'll see something like that in the future. I think the reason that we didn't get anything is, one, I think that it's going to be set up that Tsurugi can't use this cross regularly, because I don't think this is just going to be a, oh yeah, it takes all of my power to use, and so if I use this in a fight after this, I'm done. I'm guessing it's going to be one of those ones that takes like, oh yeah, I have to give it a year of my life or something like that. Or, it takes a chunk off my lifespan type of scenario, and he can't just use that even in a normal fight, because you would expect in most fights he could just pull this out, really, when it comes down to it, the last guy, and just nuke them and just take them out, and it's like GG. But if there's a sacrifice, there's a trade-off that he has to have every time he uses it, then it's not going to be something that is logically viable to just pop in any fight, even if you just want to overkill one guy. So one thing, again, that I wanted to talk about that with is the fact that I think it was intentional, maybe, that they didn't, like, that the manga didn't give us any details on these two, because it's like, one, you explain why he can't use Arthur's cross and Excalibur in any fight, but then at the same time you give him rattling bones so he can have it, and then we get the explanation on his abilities afterwards. Because one thing to note, usually in a fight like this, if I didn't think the sword was going to go anywhere, I thought it was going to break or just be non-existent, I don't think it would have been just sheathed all the way before going back and doing fine. So I'm hoping that Tsurugi's in a spot where he can't use Arthur's cross in any fight, but he can use rattling bones, so he takes the sword and he has a physical sword that he can use in any battle, and he's able to utilize that. Because on top of that, we could maybe get a little explanation on the power that the demons use, if he can use that as well, or maybe he can convert that into light and turn it into like a light version of rattling bones. I don't know, joyous bones or something. Because I think it'd be great for him to have that and just put that in his arsenal of having this sword. Because normally all his weapons are just directly made out of pure light. So, and his cross, I mean, it's not like it's a physical giant sword. It is a cross that you put power through. So it, and as he had it already, it was fitting in his pocket, in his coat pocket. So it's not like he doesn't have the space to carry around rattling bones. So he could take it. I mean, just like literally walk over there, pick that bad boy up. It was mentioned by Tanjinchi that other demons fear rattling bones. So this would be perfect for him to be able to just pop that into his moveset and be able to use this blade. So as it were, it was really badass just to see the dialogue between them, and Tanjinchi is happy to, when he's like, show me your strength that you're talking about, the strength that you're preaching about or protecting the people that you represent. But then when he's like seeing the sword and like seeing the power around it, he's like, oh, I live for this is pretty much what I live for. I should return in kind, and powers up rattling bones at full power, like full throttle, full blast, and they just go in for that classic final strike. Both sides are like just way off from each other, and then it's down to the final like the conclusion of that last match, and you have Tsurugi just completely slashing and exorcising Tanjinchi. We don't see Tanjinchi's body super directly. You can, if you zoom in, you can see his sword is sheathed, even in the panel where it's just him lying on the ground. And I'm wondering, though, if he, like, decays and just maybe, like, turns into ash, will this, are we going to see the sword still there? Because if the sword is there and his body disappears, that is 100% going to go to Tsurugi as a new sword a new sword into his moveset. He'll have an actual physical sword to use, because I think that'll be really good for him, because it'll be a way for him to have a sword that isn't it isn't directly tied to his percept power, so he can use it without having to drain any energy, because that's probably the weak point to his moveset right now. Is he is a swordsman, but he's like a martial arts style swordsman, so he is required to use powers to even draw his blade in the first place. So if he's got this special blade where even if it's, think of it's like this, it's like every time he has to use a blade, he has to use power in order to conjure it, and they're probably easier generally to break than like a physical blade that's buffed. So it's like if he has something that is probably going to just take power to draw, unless it is only going to be one that it's that whole draw, attack, resheath, moveset, whole structure, I would assume that he'll be fine wielding it. But as it were, I thought this chapter was really good in terms of just going into the backstory, showing that Tsurugi, I figured that he was going to be more so of like a higher-end prodigy, but his brother is in that spot, and he seems more like he is clearly powerful, but he's picking up the rattled kind of pieces of what happened to Concordia after people moved around and Sakaki retired. Because it's like if it was the strongest when Sakaki and Utsugi were in charge and running the things, and here's now Tsurugi, he's doing it, but the next strongest people are are clearly capable, but it's not nearly of a mighty force of like just a cornerstone of what their whole Exorcist group has in order to fight the demons, in comparison to what it was with this dude's older brother. Because there was that bit where there was like some guys that were saying that Tsurugi was riding his brother's coattails to get to where he was at, which clearly we know that's not the case. Maybe it seemed like that like early on. We don't really know, because his brother, we don't really know anything about his brother other than the fact that he's gonna have like the edgiest design in the whole series. It looks like he's just wearing like an all black suit. He's got fingerless gloves, black fingernails. He's got ears and lip piercings. This dude's probably gonna be like the right style of edgy that just makes him really cool. I can't wait to see what his powers are, because I imagine he's just gonna be badass. But Sakaki, I really like that Sakaki, when it came to interacting generally with Tsurugi, he just decided to just be like, hey, how are you? It seems like you don't have a partner, you don't want to work with anybody, but come on, you're gonna work with me. And I think that he could just tell this was just a guy that was trying to prove himself and didn't want to work with anybody. But at the end of the day, he wasn't a bad person. He was just in a spot where he kind of had to. But I think that this is something that I don't want to go into like too preemptively, just because we don't have the information. Is I'm guessing that Sakaki learned what Utsugi is like, and he's just like, yeah, this dude hasn't had a good brother probably his whole life, because he probably knows that like this dude is kind of crazy, and so Tsurugi probably has just had a whole life of dealing with this lunatic brother. I'm guessing. Because I think it would make sense if the reason that he can, be as ruthless as he is, and as he can be, is because of probably the way that he like learned from his brother or something like that. But I just love the style of how this manga can really tone into like the core of shonen when he's talking about how like, oh, you think a fancy title is gonna be enough to defeat me? Like all it is words. And Tsurugi goes more so into obviously the meaning is like what it is to hold the title, and it's like again it's this position that identifies and symbolizes that you are a, you know, you're a shield and a sword for the like the weak, and just keeping the people safe, as well as the people that work under you and look up to you for like the whole exorcist job. And it's just it's one of those things where it's like once you really kind of understand of what it is for the people, because you gotta think of it too is for the people that were at one point lower and then eventually grow up into cross paladin, that we don't know the details, and I think that's something that will really expect be good to expand it. Good to be expanded upon. I'm bad at my words today. Good to be expanded upon is if we get more cross paladins over time, because it shows that again the like one, the danger as the eras have gone by, but also it gives us lower characters, but also uh, it gives us characters to mention for the other characters that it's like they looked up to them, or these are the cross paladins that they knew when they were young, because it's completely different if like once you achieve a spot, if you also like if you went up through the steps to get there, but also if you had somebody in that spot beforehand that you look up to, and it's like, okay, well, this was the person that did it when I was there, or you know, when I was trying to aspire for it. But now you know, wherever they are, I guess in this scenario, instead of it being in normal work, it's like they're probably dead or retired. But with Tsurugi, obviously he has a very strong level of conviction for the promise that he made to Sakaki about how he was going to uphold this position and on the title, and then he just goes into it and pulls out Arthur's cross, because I feel like when it's like this, there's no way there wasn't a higher reason that he doesn't just use this earlier. There has to be a bit of a restriction that keeps it from being just flauntingly used as they fight. So we'll see in the next chapter. But this was a really good general chapter. I really liked how at the end he's like, you know, am I able to say that I've gotten closer to you, Sakaki? Like he wants to be able to reach up to the strength of the guy that he looked up to when he was going through the ranks. Because you have to think about it like that too. If Tsurugi wanted to get to cross paladin just because of the power level rank it was within the church, but he didn't have a cross paladin or like higher than him person that he genuinely looked up to in a, again, an inspiring kind of way, I think that's what Sakaki ended up being. Because if Utsugi is somebody that is just, it's not like he's just kind of a bad guy, I think it'll really open up the idea and the logic into what exactly led for Tsurugi to be in this kind of loner position. Because if his brother is just if his brother's somebody that they didn't do well enough to be an older brother, it would make sense why all it seemed to really took to kind of like help put Sakaki on a better path is just this one of his seniors to be like, come on man, I got you, quit moping around, we'll be on a team and we'll go work together, and then we'll go out, we'll play ping pong, it'll be all good. But yeah, so this was just a good chapter. This was a really solid bit. I love that it ended even on one of the classic sword bouts, that final slash with the judgment effect move. But the next chapter, I mean, I'm really hoping that we open up the next chapter with him picking up Rattling Bones, or at least some form of insinuation that someone is picking up Rattling Bones. We'll see. But then after that, we're getting to the Sakaki and Mukurojima fight, which I'm really excited to see, because I really want to know what exactly is it. They're like dice rolls. What other abilities does Sakaki have, as well as what Mukurojima has, because he's the one that I've wanted to see the most out of all the demon lords to fight. So that fight's going to be really cool. And then we'll get to Zudaroth and Kiyoshi, obviously, after that. But still, as it were, I'd like to hear the comments what you guys have to say about this chapter. and what you thought about the general layout of this fight. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one.